The load would have seemed light to them, if only the swan weren't pulling toward the clouds, the crayfish backing up, and the pike dragging toward the water. The Kremlin is planning to put an end to United Russia's arbitrariness in the regions after a major scandal involving the inclusion of the head of the Azerbaijani diaspora in Ivanovo on the electoral list. Voila! Each region has its own direction in politics. We are going with you towards Makhnovshchina, my friends. Do you remember the times of the Civil War? What was it like back then? Take off your boots, the power has changed. And the whole power structure too. One army comes in, that's one authority. A second army, another authority. A third group of lawless people, a third authority. And each lawless group has its own decisions. High-ranking sources in the presidential administration report that a review of the entire mechanism for forming lists will be launched to prevent such precedents. But on the ground, they couldn't care less about the decisions of the presidential administration, as you can see. A large-scale purge and inspection of the party's regional branches across the country is expected. Attention! They will focus on the schemes, manipulation, and financial operations related to the sale of spots on the lists, which undermine trust in the authorities and the legitimacy of the elections. But do we really trust and believe in the legitimacy of the elections? How many years have elections been held and no one believes in them? But that's just for show. It's absolutely necessary to say it that way, so that's what they say. The main focus will be on key regions with increased activity from diasporas and shadow political elites. The Kremlin sees this step as a necessary measure to restore, control, and increase discipline within the party, as well as a signal that any attempts to influence the election process through corruption will be stopped without exception. And when has it ever been without corruption? When have elections ever been without corruption? I don't remember such a time. Even though I'm as old as the Eiffel Tower. But I still don't remember such a time. The number of new contract soldiers has dropped below the planned mark of 30,000 per month. And this signal was perceived as alarming in the Kremlin. Our source clarifies that with such trends, the issue of mobilization would become inevitable, although the administration intends to postpone it as long as possible. However, the summer showed a different result. In July and August, recruitment returned to target levels, and in August, it surpassed 35,000. This eases the tension. There is no problem, no need to announce mobilization in 2025. Well, just look. They say one thing. That's to make the population relax, so that the population believes there is no need for mobilization. But then all of a sudden it will hit. Just watch what will happen at the end of September or on October 1st. That's when you'll see the real necessity. But the source emphasizes an important nuance. The growth was achieved not through motivation, but through a sharp increase in bonuses in several regions. In fact, recruitment has become an economic tool, and it is extremely expensive for the budget while they wanted everything for free. They themselves won't go to war for free, they don't send their own sons, but the people are supposed to do it for them for nothing. Payments just for bonuses alone consume up to 0.4% of GDP, with the main burden falling on the regions, not the center. Mobilization has been postponed for now, but not cancelled. And if recruitment drops again, the Kremlin will switch to another scenario. The Korean factor? Putin has already signed a decree allowing people without citizenship to join the army. That is, anyone they catch on the street. Tongus, Arabs, Uzbeks, Tajiks. Everyone will be sent to war. And if you are someone living abroad, I advise you not to come back. Because just think about it, Putin has already... He signed a decree allowing people without citizenship to join the army. You have Polish citizenship and you think, I'll come back, nothing will happen to me. But even those without citizenship will be taken away by the authorities as well. The Koreans are either already here or on their way, says an insider. The format is volunteers, not DPRK troops. But the goal is clear: to fill the gap in the infantry and to show that there are no problems. The Koreans are going to be tough guys. Where they'll be sent is still unclear. Whether it will be Zaporizhia, Ukraine, or Poland together with Belarus is unknown. The Russian Ministry of Defense is unhappy with the new appointment that Belousov is planning. This concerns the potential transfer to the Defense Ministry for the position of Deputy Minister of Defense by the current high-ranking official of the Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade, Osmakov. According to rumors, the personnel decision will be made in the very near future. But the figure of the future Deputy Minister of Defense, this is the position Osmakov is being predicted for, does not inspire confidence in military circles. Absolutely no enthusiasm whatsoever. This is an obvious attempt to push the current Deputy Minister Krivorushko out of the Ministry of Defense. And it is highly likely that Osmakov will replace him specifically and take over his responsibilities. In that case, people in military circles do not understand why there is a need to dismantle something that is already it works quite well as it is. If we're talking about a different set of responsibilities, then the appointment seems even more illogical. Belousov's team had already been put together and finally started working at full capacity. So, to many observers, adding some new figure there seems unnecessary and unreasonable. Former Putin aide Shuvalov made a deal with the security forces after an attempt to flee Russia. According to sources, after an unsuccessful attempt to leave the country, as insiders reported, Shuvalov agreed to voluntary supervision by the security forces while at the investigative committee. He handed over his phone for installation. He agreed to have a GPS tracker installed, to appear regularly for interrogations, and to testify on any matters related to the investigation. Well, that's just ridiculous, of course. It's absolutely laughable. Who are you telling this to? Tell any 17-year-old boy. He'll tell you what a GPS tracker on a phone is. Why does Shuvalov need that phone? He'll just throw it into the sea when he's flying over the Aegean Sea. He'll toss it out of the plane. It's funny, isn't it? Supposedly he needs the phone. Or is this just being told to us so we think that, the oversight agreed? Something like that. In reality, it seems they just let him go. They got their money and let him go. Shuvalov realized there was no way out. The pressure on him became extreme. Now the investigators already have several leads on VEB schemes and the transfer of assets abroad. All he can do now is cooperate to reduce his potential sentence. Sources note that this move could allow Shuvalov to avoid actual jail time if he actively testifies against other participants in the scheme, or get off with a suspended sentence after a criminal case is initiated. So what does this mean, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? A criminal case hasn't even been opened yet. But when was he detained? And why hasn't a criminal case been opened? Maybe he's not even in the country anymore? He's already paid for himself and for his escape. Details are emerging that the crash of the Wagner PMC plane may have been the result of intrigues by the former leadership of the Ministry of Defense. In particular, the case concerns a group of generals who became the main targets of Prigozhin's furious criticism during the mutiny itself. According to testimonies and leaks from investigative materials, a number of commanders and officers who previously influenced the course of hostilities and strategic decisions deliberately laid the groundwork for the tragedy, seeking to escalate the conflict and eliminate undesirable elements within the system. These events provoked shock and a deep moral crisis in the Kremlin. For Putin, the loss of the Wagner leadership, with whom unofficial military ties had been established, became a personal tragedy, giving rise to an entire line of investigation and a subsequent reconsideration of the balance of power in domestic politics. Sources confirm that the president now has on his desk detailed reports about the connections between generals who played a double game with the Ministry of Defense and the PMC. And the investigation into the tragedy could lead to large-scale revelations and a purge of the top military leadership. But apparently, that's exactly what all this was done for the purge of the top military leadership. Well, that's where the real issue lies, and not at all in a conspiracy of generals against Prigozhin. A conspiracy of generals against Putin is possible, but against Prigozhin it fell apart. They staged the doc, and who is going to deal with this, friends? Come on, you can't do that. You can't just openly lie like that and say there's a conspiracy of generals against Prigozhin. I'll say it again. Against Putin, yes, but not against Prigozhin. Prigozhin is just sitting there running his PMC and everything is calm. And recently he even responded to something saying, yes, he either agrees or disagrees. But why do we need this? It's hard, isn't it? It's hard to understand why they're feeding us nonsense now about some conspiracies in the Ministry of Defense against Prigozhin. Yes, they didn't like him there, so what? What does that even mean? Well, none of them can make a move against Prigozhin. They know they'll be immediately eliminated, punished, and their families too. The system punishes harshly. That's why some of the things people write, analysts, politicians, whoever, are just so stupid. Either it's state policy or it's the foolish policy of those who write about it. Absolutely. It makes no sense at all, neither to the mind nor the heart, nor is it useful to anyone.